Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of This, That, and the Other. I'm your host, Magic, and this is episode 5 of season 4. I think I got that right. So, once again, welcome everyone, and hope everyone's doing well. I know we've got some questions on the forum about a variety of things, but those appear to be getting handled by the forum, so I won't go into great depth on those tonight on the show here. We do have a guest with us tonight. Looking forward to speaking with him, and that is B Stevens 07. So we're gonna get to hear a little bit about how he does, what it is that he does in the game, and uh, just pick his brain a little bit. Let's go ahead and bring him on. Let's see if Brian's available.
Hey, Magic. How's it
Can
going?
you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Brian?
I can. Can you hear me?
Hello. I'm messing with you, man.
That's fantastic. How's it going? That's a good one. You got me there. I was like double checking all my settings,
Break the tension, kind of ease
Yeah.
the anxiety level there. But definitely welcome, Brian. Glad that to have you on. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you. Doing great.
Good. Well, before we get into the meat of things, as I say with every show that we have a guest on, it's time to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, how you got the name, and what it is that keeps you playing this game.
Yeah. My name is Brian Stevens. I live in Brighton, Michigan. It's about 25 minutes north of Ann Arbor there, and have a wife, 4 kids. I help run a software company that focus on colleges and universities on their reporting and analytics and data and some other things that we do for them. So definitely keeps me hopping. So this is a nice hobby for that. And just 07 was my baseball number growing up, but I grew up in a town on the far east side of the metro area, Detroit, called Marine City. Played football and basketball and baseball growing up, and came across What If Sports in like 2006 with the simulator. It was like I saw the simulator, and then I tried the Hoops Dynasty for a while. Ended up in Gridiron Dynasty. Took a long hiatus. I helped out coaching some football for a while there, and wasn't doing that anymore. And I was like, I got to do something. And that's when I made the switch to the Gridiron Dynasty, and really just sort of flailed around for a while. You know what I mean? Just taking lumps for quite some time. And then in the fall of like 2020 with COVID, I just was like, I'm going to try to get back into this and, really learn from a lot of people, really read the forums, ask questions from people who are whooping me. And, been really enjoying it. Been adding some teams and been having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, we see that your anniversary is coming up here in a couple months. I think it's the last day of July of 06. So almost 7 years. And, if you stick with this game for more than about 2 years, you can forget it. You're stuck.
Yeah.
You can't break away.
You
may leave, but you're going to come back.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's definitely been the case with me for sure. Yep.
Now we see that record-wise, let me see. I think we had some info. Yeah, 672 winning percentage and not shabby at all. A couple conference championships. And looking to erase that goose egg from the NC side of things. How close are you getting there?
Oh, I've been getting close. So just in Rock. Well, I wouldn't say I was close in Rockney, but I took my Texas A&M team to the national championship game in the previous season and got whooped by MP McPherson and his Ohio State. Mark, yeah. And then, but excited about this year. Just went 14-0, won the Big 12. Got a number 1 seed, so we'll see how it goes. I lost a lot of seniors, but where I really came close was with my Oklahoma team in Dobie. I had a few seasons ago, I had a year where I was just like in a rut and lost a few regular season games, and it made me really tweak my whole approach and started working. Got all the way to the finals and lost to Charlie His what's he got USC in that world, and so I had a 1 point lead at halftime. Then he got me by a couple touchdowns, and this past season I lost to him by a couple touchdowns in the semifinals. So knocking on the door in some pretty tough D1 competition, and hoping to eventually get over the hump, but it's not easy, man. There's so many good coaches in all those worlds that can easily trip you up. I know S. Cottrell got me when I felt like I had one of my better teams. He got me by a couple points a couple seasons ago, and so I'm also trying. I have a team in D2, Carson Newman, that I'm 3 seasons in. And then I have a Colorado Mines in Wilkinson that I'm thinking of going up to 1AA. So I have like a team in D2, a team in 1AA, and then a few teams in D1. I really like D1. I took Michigan State, and they were WIS ranked 100 last season, and we got knocking on the door of the playoffs. And so going to really try. I like doing the rebuilds. You know what I mean? Yeah. So promising. A lot of those losses came in the first rendition, so I like where it's trending. But I got work to do, man. I got work to do to erase that goose egg. That's what I'm chasing right now. So I'm having a lot of fun.
That's one of the things I recommend to any coach who is really concerned with his record in the future. I've always said, whatever screen name you choose, whatever ID you choose, that's going to be yours. So put that one aside, get you another one, and learn your lumps and take your lumps with that, so that it has a shitty record. And then when you get things figured out, then pick up the one that you want. So you've got the 800, 900 winning percentage at that time.
Oh man, I tell you, I know that I went wrong with that if I'd have known, but no, it's been a lot of fun just trying to tweak everything. There's such good coaches, but I think the difference has been really diving into a lot of multiple levels down on the game planning than what I used to do. And really doing a lot of the GD analyst tool is huge to be able to analyze the games in a lot of different ways. So I'm having a lot. I mean, I've been in the reporting and analytics space for 15 years or so. So with my job, and so this is a kind of a fun way to sort of help keep me sharp on that too. So it's fun.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like to see the results and look at them, at the initial view and kind of get an idea of what's going on. Where I'm bad is taking, like you said, going down another level, going down a couple more steps, and really tearing apart those results and the information to identify or even isolate, exactly what's happening on what play. And that, I think for me, it's tough for me to do because we're dealing with, X's and O's. I mean, ones and zeros.
Yeah, man.
When I was coaching football, it was a matter of looking at the game film, and it was more tactile.
Yes,
I understood it better and the situations. Whereas here, we're just looking at numbers and right. The basic text of what transpired and what who did what, when, and where. So you really have to have a good, like you said, analytical mind to be able to break it down so that you get the information that helps you improve. And you've done that part now. You're starting to see some of these success of that in-depth work.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people, I mean, that have been willing to help, and people on the forums and stuff. Charlie helped me out. I asked some questions. There was some person that pointed out that I probably should be using a running quarterback if I have gotten to an elite, and so that was a little humbling. But like, hey man, thanks for the heads up, and that I've been doing a lot better since that. So there's a lot of info out there. Like I really look like on defense how I'm using linebackers, how I'm using blitzes, like very specific situations on going against different things with different tendencies. And so I've had a lot of fun breaking it down, and I've been in a lot more leagues than I was before, or a lot more worlds. And so getting to where I can get through it faster too. it's
Right. Yeah.
there's a process,
More data.
and do it. So it's just I'm just having a lot of fun with it, and it's a nice way. Things. Wife, 4 kids, love them all. They're all blessings, but it gets crazy, right? And we're
You gotta,
crazy.
you gotta be able to get away.
One thing to get away and just throw a college football podcast on or something and just jam away at it. So
Well, you've got a couple teams at D1 and some elites for that matter, like we talked about, and that D2 teams. The analytics that you look at and you kind of tear apart, is that applicable at D2 as well as D1, or do you find it's a little more difficult at a particular level?
I think it's pretty similar. I'm still getting a feel for it at D2 because there's not as many human games because I don't put much stock in. And so in like D1, I'll sort of striate it, right? Like, all right, not just human games, but human games against similar talent than me, right? So I'll throw out a couple like teams that are sort of just starting or whatever. And I'll say, all right, what are teams that are sort of in the top, for like just say Rockney and Dobie right now? Like, what are teams that are sort of in the top 10, top 15, top 20? What are they doing against those? Because that's probably going to be the most realistic and tweak that. In D2, there's not much of it. I feel a lot better after the first half in those games. But, sometimes, the boat's already burned by then sometimes if you sort of miss it. And so still getting a feel for it, but you kind of have to get, because what I like to do is use the regular season to sort of get a sense where some of the kinks are and work out some kinks like in D1. And the only issue is in D2 right now, if I do that, then my vision isn't going to be higher. So I'm sort of trying to deal with that. And so I like to self-scout my team too. So those are some of the things I'm working through. But I think as I get some better teams and start to, like right now I'm in my 3rd season at Carson Newman. Once I get to a full set of all my players and red shirts, I think I'll start to be able to move a little further into the playoffs and then get some more insights. And if there's some teams that I see in the playoffs the previous season that are probably going to be there, I'll put just a couple notes down about them maybe, for the next time in case they didn't play any human teams during the season,
Yeah, exactly. Because that's kind of misleading. Some, I'm one of them, I've got a sim offense and defense that really doesn't mean squat.
Yeah.
So getting the freshman playing time and then, you put the real offense and defense is, I say when you're playing another human. And, sometimes when you're scouting those other humans, and like you said, they're playing all sim teams, you really aren't seeing what they're going to do against you specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and then it's the like guess, which is amazing. So it's like, all right, I get a rough idea where their talent is, sort of like, where their talent's set. And you sort of have to try to come up with something on the fly. Like you don't even know what formation, check their formation IQs to see what they'll probably put out there. I've had people throw just a totally different offense out there before. And I was just like, I didn't even game plan for that. So, you know what I mean? So yeah, sometimes you got to take your lumps for a while before you pick up on some of that, but it's
and that's one of the things I check, is in that situation where you're playing a human who hasn't played another human and it's several games into the season. That's one of the things I do is I'll go to the formation IQ for that particular team and not just look to see where their numbers are, but actually go down to see where their improvements are. Because when you go down to where their improvements are, that's when you can see what that coach is practicing. And that kind of gives you an idea of, what he's going to throw at you, because a prime example would be, somebody taking over a previously sim team, let's say, and they've got the pro set, Wishbone or whatever it is, iPro and Trips, whatever, and they're all in the 60s. So you're looking at that and you really don't know what this guy is going to focus on or gal when they play you. But if you go down below that initial part where it shows their formation numbers, you can actually see where their increases are. And that's where you identify, okay, this guy's practicing nothing but pro set. So regardless of what the numbers are, when he plays me, chances are he's going to play pro set.
That's a great little pointer there, because I go up to the top screen and try, but yeah, I might as well scroll down and see what they're
all the way down. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good call.
And, for the teams, also in that same vein, for the teams that are successful, and for those folks who are trying to figure out what is this coach doing to improve his players, or where is he focusing his time on practice, you can go down on the ratings side of that profile and go down to the ratings page where you can see all their cores. And if you keep going, you can see where they're improving.
Yeah.
And that gives you an idea of, wow, this guy doesn't practice blocking at all for his running backs. And you look and it's, well, no shit. He doesn't throw. He doesn't run. And hell, he doesn't keep them in to block. He's sending running backs out.
Sending them out every time. Yeah.
So those are the kind of tips that you can look at. And, sometimes it's just a matter of, one fumble or one play that turned the game around. I know I was on the losing end of one of those today. Where one play changed the game late in the game. And, had I not had that play happen, I would have won the game. But, that's neither here nor there. But the reality is it could be an NC or not. Just being able to identify a nugget.
Because you get down to those last few rounds and the margins get thin, man.
Very thin.
Yeah.
And if you're, on the seesaw of being good or bad like I am, you need every break you can get.
Me too, man. I gotta take any break I can get for sure. So gotta be able to need one of those fumbles to go my way so I can maybe break through, get one of these natties one of these days. We'll see.
Yeah. Oh, it'll come. You'll enjoy it immensely when it happens. Believe me. I know we've talked about this previously, but you always remember that first one.
Yeah.
Even if it's one that was kind of, put on the plate for you, like my first one was practically given to me. I think Super V97 at Endicott had the team built. And all I did was take over and keep them from screwing up too badly and won a national championship. So really wasn't much of my doing. It was his, but it was a glorious event. I slammed a couple beers that night.
Gotta win. So. I'm definitely going to do that when that happens.
You got to, man. You have to. You earned it. You enjoyed it.
Yeah.
As far as the NC chances go, now you've talked about being close at D1A. The Colorado team that you've got now is one I had quite a bit of fun with, that particular team.
And I noticed that.
It's tough to recruit. The blessing is once your vision comes up at D2, at Colorado Mines, you see some players that, of course, a lot of the other schools don't see. But a lot of your competition that is, generally speaking, at the level you are when you're in the upper crust and seeing that great vision are teams from like Valdosta, or Humboldt, or up in the Northeast.
Yeah.
So those teams, even though they're able to see the same players you are, they're less likely to be on some of those players that are in the, let's say the Dakotas, the Oklahomas, whatever the case may be. They're more focused on the California, Nevada, Georgia, Alabama, Florida type stuff. And then, of course, you've got the Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, that area. So once you're at the level where you're seeing that top echelon vision and you're seeing all those mega recruits, D1A guys aren't really thick in that area. So they're looking to stay close to home or elsewhere. So you really have an opportunity, if you're patient at Colorado Mines, to get some good quality players.
Oh, that's good to know.
It takes patience, because I know there were times when I was on the last day of recruiting and I had 5 of 12 scholarship I still needed to fill. But it was a matter of, me looking at a previously undecided that a D1AA was on, but
Yeah.
I knew this guy is just a pure backup for him because he's
Oh.
got ample recruits in his area that he's also on. So it's just a matter for him to fill all his scholarships so that, I've got enough time invested in this guy and enough visits that he'll sign with me once that guy
Might be
fills all
fun to
his-
run a couple cycles worth of roster cycles at Mines to see sort of what happens there. That could be fun to do that.
Yeah, but don't let the scarcity freak you out.
Okay.
And again, because there are very few recruits within your 360 at Colorado Mines. You will be landing guys from
I
all
noticed
over.
that on the first one.
Yeah, but don't let that spook you. They're out there. And sometimes, you can sign a guy with nothing more than an AC scout and a scholarship. I mean, literally, sometimes
I
that's
was
all
surprised how, because I'm used to just the knockdown, drag out recruiting. Like my Oklahoma, like Dr. Coach is always.
Oh yeah,
Texas, he's always taking my guy.
Yeah.
I told him I'm gonna stop battling you, man. Like I'm not even. I go, you got a good NIL program down there in Austin these days or something. But I think it's just because he can snag so many and then he can just battle. Whereas
exactly.
So what I had to do is find like really my approach at each one. So at Oklahoma, there's parts of Arkansas that I can lock those players up for the most part. If they're close in Kansas or close in Missouri, I can usually get those players. But there's usually enough in Texas also where even if Dr. Coach skims one, I could get another one that's maybe a couple points lower but has high potential or whatever, and then just going to have to coach those guys up and try to see what I could do, right? Because that's tough. For Texas A&M, it's like I got to let Texas, Oklahoma, and LSU eat. But then hit East Texas, DFW, Houston, and then Louisiana. What LSU doesn't work. It depends on where other people are too, like right, other humans. But and Michigan State's kind of fun because I live right here, and basically in Heisman, what was happening is I was hopping all over, and I had a really good team at Connecticut, finished like number 2, number 3, made the quarters or whatever. And put in for a USC job. I didn't get it. I was like, oh, man. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try just something fun and just like stop sort of chasing an elite. And then I went to Tulane, and then I went to Maryland, and then I went to Temple. And I'm like, you know what? I just got to do a rebuild and have fun with it. And at least if I had Michigan State, like I'm a Michigan fan, but I'm like, I'll take Michigan State because at least I can see people in my area, see the towns in my area, which is fun. And I actually got a quarterback from Brighton where I live, and his last name's Dalton, like Roadhouse, which I thought he's one of my favorite players. We'll see how good he is. He's very high and he was decent, but like just his name and the fact that he's in my hometown makes him one of my favorite recruits. And Dalton from Roadhouse, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm guilty of recruiting a kid just because of the school he went to, and that was my high school in Virginia. Graduating class of 180. So really super small school.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, there was a kid from that school. I recruited him even though he sucked rat's ass.
You gotta have a spot for that guy, right? You gotta.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you gotta do that.
His mom would make us cookies and stuff. So we kept him on the team.
That's it, man. That's awesome. That's fun. So I'm having fun with that. Played some, so it was a sim, so it was heavily scheduled, but played some teams tough that were human teams, and so that was kind of fun. And going to try to just keep my strategy there is like, not going to – it's such a tough league, but my thought was if I could do a rebuild at Michigan State, there's so much value just going through all those battles with all those teams all the time. That whatever I do there, it'll at least help my other teams, and maybe if I could do something there, that'd be cool, but it'll be fun. I'm still sort of figuring out – it takes me usually a few seasons to figure out my niche as to how I want to, till I can get a groove in recruiting at a place. So still trying to figure that out. I know I'm not going to battle Notre Dame or Ohio State or Michigan or anything. So I'm just trying to find those, like kind of how like when D'Antonio was at Michigan State, how he was actually successful, finding those under the radar guys, coaching them up and
Yep.
and having a good ball club. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But so far, so good with that one.
He was good with the 3 stars today, the 5 stars of tomorrow.
Yeah,
He did a good job with that.
My sister-in-law dated one of their players who played right guard there, so got a chance to sort of see some of their doing. They had like Le'Veon Bell, who I don't know how he got under the radar, but that guy was something else. And so yeah, it was. I wasn't too thrilled about it because they were whooping Michigan for quite some time, but gotta tip your cap.
Oh yeah, good is good.
They were good. So.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to recruiting, is there a particular area? And I know you don't have schools everywhere. You've got your handful of 5 or 6 schools, but as far as recruiting goes, regardless of what level, have you kind of picked up on places that are really good and fertile for recruiting that you like to target, regardless of what school you're at?
Yeah. So I think it's good. I think it's the Northeast is crazy. Like the whole Eastern Seaboard basically is pretty crazy. Like I'll find myself with like my Oklahoma and A&M teams getting people from North Carolina and Virginia. I think like that Maryland, North Carolina, Virginia area, if there's not a whole bunch of human coaches in there, there are so many players. And I mean, there's an amazing coach who is in Dobie Osbald, who took North Carolina to like multiple national championships. I mean, he's a great coach too, but there are players over there. And even so I was at North Carolina and Heisman, and I really I like going to North Carolina. And I could cut out a little part of like the sort of the Tidewater area, like Newport and along the coast where it's outside of Tennessee's 360.
Right.
State usually doesn't go down there, and the Florida schools usually don't mess with
they don't look there.
And so I actually had some team, and this was back when I first sort of came back. So I mean, I might try to get North Carolina at some point again because I just have a better feel for like I could do more with those players. But there were times where I got the top receiver in the country, the top quarterback, because people just wouldn't battle. And I knew that if there was a certain sliver, like I had a decent chance for it, and then could go up north to Pennsylvania, could go south. I also like getting folks out of California and Florida that are overlooked sometimes if they're high potential or they're like a linebacker that fits what I like to do. I like to have guys that can really cover run a 3-4. And so, I'd say also a player that I think is slept on in some areas is where I'm at in Michigan. Michigan and like Indiana, because a lot of worlds, they'll be the elites, but there really won't be many teams up there. And there's good players that can sneak through the cracks. So you can go out and get them. Like I was at Rutgers one time, and I had a nice, some good success, filling out there. But it was like a dogfight because every team was full in the Northeast, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I remember being like, well, I'm going to dip into Ohio and Michigan and Indiana to sort of supplement my team. Once probably 4 cycles in recruiting went by and sort of the initial battles are out, then it's like do a search and say, okay, let me snag some of these guys. Maybe it's a very low, but they got high at, or maybe it's you're usually giving up something when you do that.
Yeah.
But you're still getting good players, and so I've my favorite area that I'm most comfortable, probably because I have Oklahoma and I have A&M. I really have a decent feel for like in the Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, that area. That's probably where I feel the most comfortable at these days. But I like the East too. There can be some. When I was at Maryland, that was in a full Heisman world where there's a lot of teams over there. That was a tough one too. It took me a couple seasons to get a feel for that. I went with the down up route. So I just get guys that high growth, make sure I was filling out my class, and then hold some back when we usually had some decent bowl money. And then if there's certain parts of my team that I needed help at, I'd go all in on a couple guys that I thought I had a decent chance to back. And then I'd figure I could coach it that, as they get more, since they start lower, they'll probably grow a little more, even though people don't grow that much in D1. So it's been recruiting's fun, man.
Yeah.
But I've bombed some classes. Boy, have I bombed some classes. Like
I did recently
wreck some teams, probably over the years. But it's so fun.
I bombed a recruiting class with Dayton. I think that's in Wilkinson. I can't recall now, but recently finished, and I tried a new tactic that just really did not work. And oh my God, it bit me in the ass. I mean, and it didn't do it until it was too late. At that point I was committed all in, and I'm like, well, I'm taking a bunch of sims this go around.
Yeah, man.
Lesson learned.
There's a point where you're just like, well, got to take my hands off the wheel, and I guess we'll see what happens. But there's usually a point when I have those classes where I realize, like, oh man, this dog's not gonna hunt here. Like, this isn't gonna work. And then it's just like, okay, like I did that the first couple at Maryland. I took like 5 sims both times, and I was like, oh boy, like I got to do something different here. This isn't working. But yeah,
there's some successful coaches that take sims. They spend their recruiting budget on a select few players, and they don't believe in depth, and they just go balls to the wall with those guys and pull it off.
It's an interesting thought. I mean, like I haven't had the bravery to try that yet, but I guess I don't have the comfort level of maybe how I would structure the roster or whatever yet, but can't argue with the results with some of the folks that do it.
Yeah, and then I look at some of the rosters of these successful coaches, and I'm like, why would he ever recruit that guy? And I look at the the GD reports that Bob puts out, and I'll go in and I'll look at that player, and he's a senior now, and I'm like, yeah, I remember thinking, why was that player taken as a freshman? Holy crap, did he grow? He must have been the sky's the limit dude.
That must have been the sky's the limit, man. Those guys, I remember I was at A&M, and someone was at Louisiana Tech and took a sky's the limit quarterback and was like a first team All-American. And I was like, oh man, I could have totally had that guy, but I had already, I knew he was sky's the limit, but I had already been in so many other battles. I'm like, yeah, well, whatever. He's only a 50. He was a quarterback. He's like 58, or whatever. And I was like, yeah. And then, his like red shirt senior year, he's like an first team All-American, like top quarterback. Like, so it happened.
And my luck, it'd be against somebody I've been playing in the playoffs, and that guy come back and kick my butt.
That would be the worst. That would be the worst.
It happens.
But there's and it's cool. There's so many. It's fun in the chats. I like to try to do conferences where the chats are pretty active. Like people like it. The ACC has been fun, and Heisman with like Easy and Tenacious DX. Those guys been in there for a while. My current conference is good. Huskers 2010 had a nice run there. And then JWZ came in and won a few conference titles. Dr. Coach, of course, has always been there. And then I picked up my second conference title this past season. But it's going to get tougher and tougher. That's always a lot of fun. And the Big Ten in Heisman's going to be that's going to be a gauntlet. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to taking over a team that you're not intentionally rebuilding, you're taking over a team, hoping to have success right away. Is your approach mainly just go with what's on the team, or do you intentionally try to structure it for your preferred offense or defense?
I like to. So it's funny because I find myself like having to shuffle my playbooks now because I run Pro 3-4 across all my teams. And so, of course, there's conflicts with the different worlds where I'm like, I almost have to be like sometimes, well, which team do I care about more today? You know what I mean? Because I can only – and so I was actually thinking about starting to expand to some other offenses and defense combos, both because it would be fun just to sort of mess around with it, but also out of necessity sort of because I find myself running out of game plan options. Like right now I got 4 of my teams. That's probably not good planning, but but I got 4 of my teams active at the same time. So it's like, all right, well, if I had to rank them, I'd put Oklahoma and A&M sort of at my highest, and then probably my Carson Newman team because I'm 3 seasons into that, and then probably my Mines team. But like, I would like to sort of avoid that. So I'm thinking like maybe like as we're talking, maybe with the Mines team, I sort of switch that to like trips and maybe try to do like either 4-3 or nickel or something.
Yeah, give you some additional formation opportunities to set up different plays for your playbook, and then you're not having to carry the allocated 10 plays or formations, across all the teams. Especially if you're doing. For me, in the past, I've run pro set, but I'd find myself with the team that was really built for running. And then other times I was like, man, this is a great passing team.
Man.
And I'm looking at 10 playbook or formations that I can run out of the pro set. And I'm like, man, this sucks.
I actually think I had a team a few seasons ago at Oklahoma that if I was running like trips, who knows? Because I think my quarterback had like 98 touchdowns. Like it was rolling, and we were running a little bit too, so we weren't only pass. But I did have a thought at that time, like, man, if there was a way that we were in like at least trips or something, because I was stacked at receiver too.
Yeah.
Right. So I have like an 84 receiver on the who wasn't starting, and it's like, man, if I could run that guy out with a couple other ones, and so that's something to think about, no doubt. So, but I usually, to answer your question, long story long, I usually will mold my team to my preferences, So
now, is there a particular coach that when you are prepared to match up against him in an upcoming game, you lose sleep at night?
There's some hard ones that I've come. I mean, Charlie for sure. Like I was like so freaked out.
I don't even game
playing the national title, and there's some things in the first time and when I played him in it where I was like, man, I could. Hindsight's 2020, of course. Him in our conference, like right now in Rockney, there's some good coaches like. I don't know how it's pronounced, but Owatskow at Oklahoma. AJ is really good across the worlds. And then Realist is an excellent coach. He's got Texas Tech in that league, so that's a fun league. And I think it's Sean S. Cottrell.
Yeah, Sean.
That guy is good. He's a good coach. And so we've had some battles with Oklahoma and Notre Dame. He's come out on the top more often than I have, but I've got him a couple times over the seasons. He's a good coach, though. He's won tons of national titles in other leagues and a bunch. He took over Notre Dame and won like a few national titles and like quickly in a real tough world. D. Dollison's really good. Rakit Wood. Cards Runner and Kuzma.
Cards Runner, yeah.
And those guys and Chetty. Like there's so many. Like there are so many good coaches in these D1 worlds. They'll be and John Allen is an excellent coach. He's got Tennessee in Dobie, and he's got UConn and Rockney, and I'm in the bracket with him and Penn State in that one. So that's gonna be a tough one. Got to get through the first couple, but there's some coaches where, and I'm sure I'm missing. I'm leaving. Oh, Mark, who just beat me by like 50 in the national championship game.
We don't need to mention him.
That'll do it. Like that one was when the halftime score comes out, and it was like, okay, well, don't have to spend too much time on that, I guess. There's some. And Hook'em Horns is a really good coach. I'm missing some, but man, there are some people who it's going to be, it's going to be a dogfight. And we had fun in the Big East, a good group in Heisman for a while, like with Hawks fan is a really good coach. He just got Notre Dame, and then Cool Man's in our league in Big 12. He just got Michigan, so we're gonna have a Michigan thing Heisman, and so it's it's a lot of fun. There's some excellent coaches, and so
If there was a school that you could just snap your fingers and get in any level in any world, what school would that be?
so purely for the game
Purely
purpose,
for the game, yeah, not a
yeah,
fan.
not like I'd like to get Michigan because I'd
Yeah.
like to get, but like
Yeah.
I'd say it would either be I would mind having Penn State
Mhm.
in Heisman, and in Dobie, I'd like to get USC.
USC, yeah, especially if nobody's at UCLA.
Yeah, when no one's at UCLA, when someone's at UCLA, I imagine it could be like just sort of like a little annoying. Especially there is a real good Kona surfer was at UCLA a lot in Heisman, and he would have seasons just as good as USC for a while. So he was a good coach. So you get a good coach at UCLA, that makes the USC job. Maybe Texas, because I mean
It's Texas.
it's Texas. So like I would say probably one of those three, and if I had to pick one, I'd say probably Penn State. There's just so many players
Yeah,
there. There's just so many players, you know.
yeah, and you've got that Northeast recruiting hotbed
Oh,
that Penn State just. I mean, it's catered to Penn State.
it is. I just think of the rosters you could put together. Man, that'd be sweet. So yeah, I'd have to probably say that.
Yeah,
Penn State.
the only way that the Penn State job would not be fun is if you're UConn, Syracuse, your Maryland's, your Pittsburgh, those schools decided, hey, if we see Penn State on a recruit, we're recruiting that recruit.
Yeah, if you get some aggressive recruiters who can pull it off, like for some time, that could be something. And that's where I sort of think about like Texas. Because there's just not as many, and there's a ton of players in Texas, and even if you have to go to, you wouldn't probably battle LSU, but even if you had to go in Louisiana, you can get some players. You can go up to Oklahoma; it's still in your 360. So, you have me teetering here, Magic. I don't know. Be one of those three, probably though.
Well, it will come down to the least opposition in the particular area. Like we mentioned, UCLA, no human there. That becomes a little more intriguing. Penn State, if you've got a desolate Big East, that's a little more enticing there as well. But with Texas, it's just, gosh, it's just with the Texas Tech not really being right on top, but with Rice and Houston and A&M and TCU and SMU, even North Texas, all of those schools can put some damage on a Texas coach if he's recruiting and he's focusing strictly on Texas, because there's only so much to go around.
There is, and I think it's if you can. What I would imagine in that situation is, can I get a bunch of guys that can play for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Close, you got Houston, you got Dallas, most of the DFW, and then 180, you got San Antonio, Austin.
Right.
Can you build 80% of your class with guys that you could at least take and get them green, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a war chest, assuming that the Big 12 usually does halfway decent with bowl money and stuff, and then you can you battle for the people that you might want to go into battle Oklahoma for someone or LSU for someone. But to your point, it all depends on who's around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in our Dobie world, it's basically Texas, A&M, Oklahoma, LSU. That's it. And so it's
a little breathing room.
A little bit of breathing room,
and especially if you've got some D1 AA schools that are really proficient, like your Sam Houston State, or Stephen F. Austin. If you've got some of those schools that are winning national championship at their level, they could put a little bit of challenge into even a D1A elite.
I've had that happen to me a few times where like either group of 5 type schools or
Mhm.
D1 AA schools, like nipping on my heels. And it's like, man, I need to spend more on this recruit than I really wanted to. And now I can't go. So it's like, now I can't go for this one that I wanted to battle for. Like,
Exactly.
especially
Yeah.
at A&M or at Maryland or whatever, you'll have like Army will or Navy, or if they're around, or some of those really good 1AA schools,
Hmm.
they'll start to, and it's not like you can't win the battle, like you can win the battle, but it's going to take you more
Exactly. Yeah.
to not be able to get someone else that you would have a decent chance with, and
Yeah.
you get a few of those in one cycle, and that adds up.
Woo, it'll turn your entire class around, and uh,
Hmm.
I've experienced it where, I thought I was sitting good, and uh, this is outside of the screw up I had in Dayton recently, but you've got a decent set of recruits green. You've had very little trouble getting them green. And now you're doing okay, I'm going to start culling. I've got some money. We're about to hit signing period here in another 4 cycles or so. I'm going to start looking distance or maybe battles that I can, upgrade a particular player.
Hmm.
And you get involved in that, and then you look at your recruit base, and you're like, holy crap, what happened to all my greens? I've got
Yeah,
this
man.
D1A turning him yellow. I've got this D1 turning him yellow.
Like, it's like, are you kidding me? And I even had it. I even had it with Oklahoma, with Tulsa. Tulsa's messing with some of my recruits, and I'm like, are you
It's
kidding
from
me?
that.
I'm gonna battle for this quarterback up in Missouri, and like, I had cool man got him. He's switching over to shotgun from, I think it was either pro or Notre Dame, maybe pro that he
Mhm.
had, but he's building a nice team that's going to be. He got some top flight. He goes up in Minnesota, Dakotas,
Oh
and
yeah.
stuff, and he beat me on some battles for some good receivers and some good D backs, and he's going to do the shotgun and have some stud receivers, and then he's going to have good D backs, and once that transformation comes, he's going to be tough to deal with,
Yeah.
no doubt.
That's one of the I would say un unpublicized byproducts of the trips, and shotgun to an extent too, but primarily trips, is the receiver aspect and the running aspect. Those cores mirror so closely that you can, if you do it right, you can use your receiver as to run the ball and have ultimate success out of trips running the ball. And then now you've got, 4 people that any given play can run the ball, or you can have, your freshman running back in that's just going out as a decoy or whatever. And
Yeah.
then 2 freshman wide receivers that are going out as decoys, and have your stud wide receiver running the ball and getting your other guys some relaxation on the bench and catching their breath, and then set the sub level at 95, and here comes the other guy in. Like you mentioned, you got an 84 core guy sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
You set all 3 or 4 of them at 95, and they're constantly rotating,
Just
staying
rolling through. Yeah.
and if you've got a good enough offensive line, you can do that. But the blessing is, if you've got a really super good quarterback, when it gets to the nitty gritty, you can throw. Whereas if you've got a Notre Dame team that's focused on running, and you've got all the stud running backs that can't catch, you
Yeah.
really don't have a throwing game. But with trips, you've got the opportunity
Yeah.
as a Big
I
12
think I'm
runner.
gonna try that. Because I just think that'd be a lot of fun to try. I think trips would be fun to mess
Yeah,
with.
and the reason I like trips over shotgun in that regard is, with trips, I can add that running back as a fullback and have him provide that one extra block. The counter when I ran shotgun to that was by not having that extra person blocking. I always had one receiver sitting very short, as a dump.
Yes. Yeah.
And that way, if the quarterback with good intelligence and good technique, he would know, hey, I'm getting pressure, and I'm just going to dump it off rather than take a
Yeah.
sack.
Which is great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And there's fun ways. I'm always tweaking the distribution with people and sort
Yeah,
of, you know what I mean? Trying to tinker with all that all the time. So I think it'd be kind of fun with a few receivers of how you could get some matchups that maybe could help you, and sort of have to have the defense guessing, all right, I got a stud, and then I got two solid guys. Where am I going to put the stud, right? Like, and so that's kind of fun because the focus on that. And so, yeah, that could be a fun offense. Because I think of like which offenses sort of can frustrate me sometimes. And I had a hard time with Notre Dame box for a long time, but I've that and Wishbone, I've have some things that have helped, over the last, few seasons with different teams where I'm starting to feel a little more comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to, not totally stop, but contain some really good teams that run these offenses. And trips, though, that one's always tough because I always find myself guessing. I'm like, all right, how are they going to do this? And then, one of the things that has been helpful is the like what's the penalty, right? So at first there are so many for years I'd just be like, all right, they do 30% run, I want to match up 30% run. And I thought, okay, but what I found is I want to see the penalty of me missing. So if I guess wrong and I guess pass and they run it, but they only get one more yard. Okay. But if I guess wrong on their pass, right? And it costs me 5 yards, right? I'm gonna set maybe it all to pass. You know what I mean? So that little element is sort of an interesting wrinkle that I've sort of been incorporating over the last, couple seasons with each of the teams. And, sometimes I'll get torched just by really good teams, but I feel like it helps a little bit just doing that quick analysis before I put the game plan in or the playbook in and everything. So,
and that's why I like the 3-4 because of that versatility right there. With the 3-4 defense, if you're expecting a run, you can always move linebacker or two up to the line to help out with that. Even if you're expecting a pass and you set it to pass, you move a linebacker and or blitz him. You've got an extra guy in the quarterback's face that even though, if they're running the ball when you expect pass, that blitzing linebacker will hopefully be in the right place to get in on a tackle.
Yeah, and that can be huge too. And almost like, hey, if there's a team, they're not throwing their tight end, I'm going to send that middle line.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And if you start to do that, and that is the position that I find myself throughout the season tweaking the depth chart the most, like almost game with human teams. Because I got guys that are sort of like my thumpers who can be in the middle if a team likes to run. And those guys wouldn't even hardly play if we're playing like an all-pass team. And I try to balance it more to the guys that can cover because teams tend to pass better than they run. But what you don't want to do is get in the playoffs and you come to a team who can just run it down. You want to have at least a couple linebackers that can help, So that's been a fun part of the game that I never used to mess with or not even know about, when I first started and now it's something that I sort of enjoy tweaking and putting guys in different spots. Do they run it outside? Do they try to run inside or whatever? So that's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
One of the things that I've actually begun to advise folks that, send me site mail on different things is be able to establish the run, be able to run the ball.
You gotta.
Necessarily, 10, 20 yards at a pop.
No.
But if you can keep the ball and you can run it, you can negate a good passing offense just by keeping the ball away from them. So,
just playing defense that way. It can sometimes be if a team has it so, and Charlie's teams are always so well tuned, and I haven't figured it out yet. All the times I've played them, I've only got them a couple times, and that's just a blind squirrel finding a nut, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But that sometimes like with people who have a humming like that, it's probably your only chance because they're not going to throw an interception. You know what I mean? Like most of the time. And
and if your formation IQ is good and the technique is good, it's going to reduce your fumbles. But even if I see a lot of these coaches who try to win, or get 60, 70, 80 points. Great, hallelujah. Next year, those stats don't mean squat. But I would rather win a game by 1 point than win a game by 60 points and not be able to have a running game when I need it. Because when you need it and you don't have it,
need it.
Punch in the butt.
It does help, even if it's just tweaking a couple of them, even if you're just doing it in long and short, and you're going outside or something, or you look and the team's maybe susceptible to an inside run and you throw that in there when you'd only run outside all year or whatever.
Exactly.
And that usually is about 30 to 35% of your plays. And then once you get to halftime, you can sort of see what's happening, right? Like sometimes I like to mix some inside runs in just to see if it's there. And
absolutely.
Just to sort of see like, hey, and then you go in and back and say, all right, well, and I do like assessing who's doing what, and I don't have any problem if I'm getting a bunch of hurries pulling in a tight end or a fullback to block or whatever. So, the game becomes a lot more fun, and that's probably why I've been adding teams, because the first go round, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I still got a ton to learn now. But when you start to pick up on some things, and it just comes by honestly, like
exactly.
Maybe other people pick it up quicker, but I had to take the lumps big time, and still am on some of them. But I feel like I at least got a puncher's chance going into every season now.
Yeah, that's something I can see. Looking across the board sometimes and looking at coaches that I'm playing against, I'm like, a couple years ago, this guy was a pushover. And now it's like, holy crap, man, I'm in for a dogfight,
Yeah.
It comes to them. You can see when it clicks, their winning percentage starts going up quickly. And it's clicked, and you're in for a dogfight. Like you said, it's trouble then.
Yeah, it is. I missed a couple people that I gotta say, like, because I was mostly in Heisman. I sort of more recently were in Dobie and Rockney, but like R. Durkers and Bud Gammer and those guys in the SEC. I've never played in the SEC in a conference. I don't know why. I just haven't really. I would love to. It's hard because I look at my options. I was like, gosh, do I want to go to Georgia and battle all those people, or Arkansas and like Ole Miss or something? And I love it because I follow the SEC dang near in real life as close as I follow the Big Ten, and so maybe one of these times I'll try a team, but it just seems like a brutal.
It is, and just from a recruiting aspect, granted, you're going to have some money every year because of the success of the SEC period. But even I had Tennessee before, and recruiting was a freaking nightmare because of the Alabama, the LSU. You've got Penn State, Ohio State. Everybody is on your back, or in your face, one or the other.
You're surrounded. I mean, you're surrounded by elites. Yeah, no doubt.
God forbid you're Vanderbilt.
Vandy. Oh, man.
You got Tennessee in your backyard.
You know what's an interesting one is Kentucky to me, because you're so close to like Ohio. You could almost take a similar approach that I'm going to try to do with Michigan State, right? Like try to get my first class with Michigan State. I took 6 guys out of Ohio.
Yeah. You can find them. You have to be patient.
So
definitely. Well, we're going to wrap it up here, but before we do, if you could give somebody one piece of advice that's coming in the game tomorrow, granted he's going to be at D3 for at least one season, but overall, from a overall perspective of GD, what's one nugget of advice you'd give him to help him succeed?
I would say read there's good stuff out there. Like read like the recruiting manifesto first and foremost, because you can at least start to get some players in there. And I would say like dive into the forums, and then if dive into the forums. So 3 things: like dive into the forums, start with the recruiting manifesto and like sort of the guide to the game that's up there. I think that's helpful. And then don't be afraid to ask people who have been doing it for a bit, because I've never had someone be like, oh, I'm not going to help you with something. Like everyone's been pretty cool and just sort of say, hey, I'm just starting out. Like this looks like fun. And that'd be I wish I would have did stuff like that earlier. I was sort of like, oh, I'm going to try to do this. And I was going off the overall ratings for 10 seasons. You know what I mean? Like,
Guilty of that.
you know what I mean? And so that's what I'd say. Just sort of try to drink in as much. There's a lot of info out there. The forums are great too, and try to be a sponge.
Kaz just commented. Oh, Kaz, he said, I can use some advice.
Hey,
yeah, he always kicks my butt, so I'm not giving him any advice.
Yeah, for sure. That's great.
I love me some Kaz. He needs to come back on. Good guy. Well, Brian, thanks so much for popping on with us, man. Definitely enjoyed it, and look forward to having you back sometime.
This was so fun. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for getting the chance to be on it, Magic. And anytime. This was a blast. Thank you so much. It was great.
Like I tell everybody, you don't need a special invite. Just pop on.
All right. Hey, cool. That sounds good.
All right. Thanks so much, folks. And that'll do it for this episode of This, That, and the Other. Good night.
Talk to you later.